Alright, so here's a fun video. So, a few days ago, the Miss Italy beauty pageant added a rule that said only people born women can enter because they didn't want trans women in the contest. There was a slight problem with that rule, and over 100 trans men has entered the contest. Now, the last update I got was up to a few days ago, so I have no idea if any of them are actually going to compete, because technically they can, or if there are going to be, or if there's only going to be the people who the organizers will actually allow, which is cis women. But anyway, here's the article. The Miss Italy pageant has announced that will not allow trans women to enter, and in response, over 100 trans men from the country have entered the pageant in protest. Now, a little bit of backstory. This was in response to a trans woman winning a beauty pageant in Germany. And I guess that scared the organizers of the Miss Italy pageant because, oh my God, trans women aren't just better at trans women as cis women in sports, but they're also better than cis women when it comes to beauty and talent or something. Miss Italy's organizer, Patrizia Mergliani, announced the news on Radio Cusano earlier this month. Miss Italy's current rules exclude trans women, and Mergliani said that she is not going to update them to jump on the glittery bandwagon of trans activism. Oh, yes, because let's just put homophobia right in with the transphobia, where homophobia is literally not needed. Anyway. Lately, beauty contests have been trying to make the news by also using strategies that I think are a bit absurd. Translation, she's scared to death that a trans woman might be better looking than a cis one. Mergliani said, referencing trans woman Ricky Valerie Collet's recent victory in the Miss Netherlands pageant. Oh, I thought it was Germany, but it's Netherlands. Okay. She is the first trans woman to win the competition and will be the second trans woman to compete in the Miss Universe competition. Oh my God, the world is coming to an end. Trans women actually can look beautiful and not like the transphobes think, which is just men in dresses. Perish the thought. Since it was born, my competition has foreseen in its regulation the clarification according to which one must be a woman from birth. Wow, that's a complicated sentence. Probably because even then it was foreseen that beauty could undergo modifications, or that women could undergo modifications, or that men could become women, Mergliani said. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that a lot of these beautiful women, if they had cosmetic surgery, I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't have a problem with that. And where does modification end? Is makeup considered modification? Because since time immemorial, beauty queens, pageant queens, wore makeup. That could be considered a modification. Exactly where does this end? Because, like I said, I'm pretty sure a lot of these women, or at least it used to be, maybe not so much now, have had cosmetic surgery. So, what modifications are you fucking talking about? And then, of course, there's the fact that intersex people exist. Again, what do you mean by modification? Colette replied to the news in her Instagram stories over the weekend. "This is so sad," she wrote, sharing a link to the news. "Instead of moving forward, it seems that we are only moving further back." She's not the only trans person protesting the recent decision. Trans men in Italy have also taken up the fight. Trans activist Federico Barbarossa is a trans man in Italy who is using the biologically born a woman rule to enter the Miss Italy pageant, and now over 100 others have joined him. And I think that's awesome. Barbarossa said he wanted to trigger, through a joke, a reflection on the absurdity of some logics out of time and out of the world, and that someone imagines us as three-headed monsters who could never aspire to win a beauty contest, because even the media representation often brings forward narratives that fetishizes our bodies. With this campaign, we are giving visibility to the truth of trans people, which I find to be hilarious. They simultaneously think that trans women cannot win a beauty contest, but at the same time, they're barring them from entering a beauty contest. Well, obviously, if they are that bad, they would get called and wouldn't be allowed to compete just based on looks. Whereas, so are they freaking too ugly to compete? Or are you afraid that they're going to win, hence not letting them enter? As usual, phobias like this anti-trans hatred, bigotry, it makes zero sense. They basically argue two sides and simultaneously and act like it can make any amount of sense. All right. And if you're interested, this trans man looks like a trans man. Let me turn you around. Him. Yeah, that does not in any world look like a woman. In case you were thinking that there was any ambiguity. Anyway, another trans man who signed up, Elia Bonci, also spoke up to an Italian newspaper about his decision to enter. "I took courage, used my dead name, which if that gives him gender dysphoria, that is a lot of courage, and signed up for Miss Italy because fighting transphobia is intersectional, and even though I'm not a trans woman, I've decided to fight for their rights," he said. Because you should. Because it starts off with shitting on trans women, and it'll turn into shitting on trans men once people get the hint that trans men actually exist. Because I find it amazing that in all these fights, it's always the trans woman. Nobody thinks about trans men because apparently they don't exist or something. Or that because they were born women, that somehow they're not as scary because, oh no, they couldn't possibly become sexual predators because, women don't attack men or something. I just do not understand why trans men are completely forgotten when transphobia occurs. Not that I want trans men to suffer from transphobia, but I just find it very interesting. Miss Italy is not just a beauty contest, but is part of the country's cultural history, he continued, and excluding trans women automatically means excluding them from history. Pretend they don't exist. So that is the end of that article. And like I said, it's all well and if you think that cis women are in general more beautiful than trans men, then I do not understand. Then trans women, sorry. Yeah, trans men. Wait, trans women. I'm confusing myself now. Trans women, then why not let them enter? I mean, you can let them enter, and my understanding is that there is a process to prevent those who don't actually belong there from getting to the point of them being on stage and being broadcast. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Miss Italy does it differently, but you wouldn't find an ugly woman in this pageant. They wouldn't be allowed in when it became obvious that this is not the standards we want. So yeah, I don't see why you can't allow trans women unless you're afraid that trans women might actually be more beautiful because men are taking over everything women do or something. I have no idea why this fear exists. Okay, there might be trans women who are more beautiful than cis women. Just like everything else. Beauty is there is a um spectrum. Some cis women are less attractive to people than others. Same thing with trans. So I fail to see what the problem is. It's not like if you let trans women enter, cis women will never win again. That's not how this works. Anyway, let's see here. I have another article here, but I want to just make sure that it's. What the heck? And it looks like this is just the same thing. Let's see if there's anything new. I wish he explained why this is absurd. Let's see. After Mergliani's comments emerged, trans men in Italy started a boycott of the beauty pageant and applied to enter the competition. Since the process to have one's preferred gender and name legally recognized in Italy is a lengthy one and not based on self-declaration, as it is in Ireland, these men technically fit all the criteria to enter the competition. They are of Italian nationality or citizenship, over 18 years old, and are still registered as female on their identity documents and were assigned female at birth. Like I said, I find that hilarious, and I think they should be allowed to compete. I mean, just really make it as absurd. She wants absurdity, we give you absurdity. The campaign was first launched by trans activists. Let's see if there's anything new here. Okay, so I think everything else is the same. Yeah, I think this is the same thing. So anyway, yeah, I just find this to be beyond hilarious that these trans men are doing this. I really wonder, since this has come out that this is happening, I wonder what's going to happen at the Miss Italy pageant. I wonder if they'll be allowed to compete, because based on this existential fear that this organizer has, I can assume that she thinks that they're not beautiful, trans women, and that she's afraid that any old schmuck can enter the pageant, even if they're not beautiful by by usual standards. I honestly don't know what she thought she was accomplishing. But if that's true that anybody and their mother can enter this pageant, then technically she's got to let all these men into the pageant, which I think would be hilarious. I mean, these are at least the one that they did show. He's a good-looking guy, so yeah, I think they should be allowed. And if people have a problem with men in the pageant, well, then pick a lane. Are they men or are they women? Because that's just then going to just prove trans people's points that gender is a social construct and sex is biology. So just because they were born women does not born female doesn't mean that they are women. It just means they were born female. So yeah, I really can't wait to see what more becomes of this. Um, when the pageant actually takes place. Because I assume that this means that it hasn't taken place yet, but I'm really curious to see what becomes of this pageant, or if they even have it, because they might find a reason to cancel it because of the protest. Because we don't know if the cis women who applied, how they feel about this. No one's asked them if they agree with the organizer or if they agree with the trans community. We don't know. I have not seen an article about that. I would love to know, number one, does this pageant go on as scheduled? And number two, what do these cis women think about these trans men's protest? So anyway, um, I guess I'm done rambling, and I will see you guys in the next video.